Greetings. Welcome to In Conversation with Trevor, brought to you by Heart and Soul Broadcasting Services. I go beyond the headlines and beyond the sensational. Today I'm in conversation with Dr. Dennis Magaya, a digital transformation strategist. If you enjoy this conversation, remember to subscribe, to like, and to share. Let's get down to some work.
I was raised by somebody that I couldn't see, so you could almost imagine what he wanted and then you just do it. I was the regional director for Southern Africa for Motorola as a technical director. So we actually built the Vodacom network. In consultants, people have to believe you. You have to tell a story. Remember, you're selling something abstract.
Dr. Dennis Magaya, welcome to In Conversation with Trevor.
Thank you, Trevor. Looking forward to the conversation.
You know, when I look at people like you, with all the things that you've been able to achieve, I always say to myself, where did they actually start? I suppose, shall we go to primary education? When you look at yourself in Kabudura shorts and look at where you are right now, talk to me about that space, how it formed you, primary school.
No, thank you very much. It was... it's an interesting space.
Yeah.
I could never imagine I'll be where I am based on where I started.
Where did you start?
I'm trying to figure out the best way. I think the key really that shaped my life is I never got to see my father. So I was raised by somebody that I couldn't see. So you could almost imagine what he wanted, and then you just do it.
What happened? He passed on while you were young?
Yeah, so my father passed on 1 June 1976 during the war, the Liberation War. What we are told is that he's probably the first and only member of the High Command to die on Zimbabwean soil at the war front.
What was his name? My apologies.
His name was Comrade Sosadza. That's why I use that name on social media.
Yeah.
But family name Arthur Magaya.
Okay.
Left for the Liberation War 1971, about. Went to Botswana, Zambia, Tanzania, then eventually to Mozambique. And then came through March 1976 to open then what was called Manica Front. So he then brought the first set of comrades to open the Manica Front. But unfortunately, he died at the front. So that's what shaped me. Raised at a farm by my grandparents. And the key highlight I remember is after grade 7, then we're doing maths and English. I got in 2 units. So I was very excited going home. And one of the ladies we used to travel with, we'd walk like 5-6 kilometers a day to and from school, said, "Oh, you're just excited about this. How are you going to go to school? You won't have school fees." So wow. I just went numb after that, but then fortunately, my grandfather had, I still remember about 18 cattle or so, the farm in Weza. And then I counted that, okay, the best I can achieve now is to get to Form 4. So you'd need for 3 terms, per year.
Yeah.
So I'd count that you need 3 cattle per year. So I calculated that this score are definitely going to go for me to finish school.
Towards my fees.
Towards my school fees. But it was very sad because then as you grow up at the farm, you get very attached to the cattle. They are part of you. But I'd counted 12 of them, that these ones will go.
And Sagur was okay with that?
Yeah, he was very determined to do that. So the first one is sold to my grade 7 teacher, and then the second one went, and the third one went. And he was determined to finish all of them.
What school was this?
St. Robert's Primary School in Weza.
Okay.
These were called African purchase areas.
Right.
These are small-scale commercial farms that were sold to Africans then. It's a very dry area. My father was the second born, but the breadwinner, really. So when he passed on, my grandfather was very keen to get some kind of replacement.
And that was you?
Yeah, that was me. So Form 1 was a little bit difficult. He went all over trying for us to get...
Form 1 at the same school?
No.
Where did you
Form
do
1, I
1?
went to St. Faith Secondary School in Usape. My aunt Tete happens to have been married nearby the school. So she managed to get me a place there from the farm. And then but when you're coming from the farm, everything is a little bit funny, I suppose. So my grandfather was very determined for me to finish school. He went all over to try and get us school fees, because this cattle business, you could see, it was not going anywhere.
So St. Faith, where else do you go?
So when I went to St. Faith, the thing is, you get there with your 2 units, one English, one Maths. And then after that, I had to go look for another school. So I asked which school requires people with a lot of A's. They said Goromons. So I said, okay, I'm going to go to Goromons. So I got to Goromonzi, and then when you get there, I actually didn't know what I was going to do. Mine was just to pass, because that was the only way I figured out I could have a life. So I just had to get distinctions. So you get to Goromonzi High School. That was 1989. And then you ask which subjects are for people with very good grades in O-level. They said, maths, physics, and chemistry. Then I said, okay, I'll do it. So I started doing maths, physics, and chemistry. At that stage, I was figuring out perhaps I could do medicine. And then my colleagues...
Where did you get these ideas that you could do medicine?
Just seeing when you come into town, you just see these medical doctors. You are told, okay, these guys have got a little bit more money, and they do complicated things. It was largely driven by what is it that very intelligent people can do. So I figured out, okay, let me do medicine. But then my colleagues went to University of Zimbabwe Open Day. They came back saying they'd seen dead people and all sorts of things. So I got scared out of it. Then I decided I'm going to do engineering. And then same philosophy again. You go to university, you ask, okay, what degree do people with very good points
grades do?
They said electrical engineering. I said, okay, I'll do it. It was only in 3rd year when I actually figured out, what is this electrical engineering thing? And someone said, no, you can go and work for the fixed line operator like T1, or you can go and work for ZESA when you finish. Okay. but before then, I didn't quite know.
You just...
I was doing it.
So you passed your engineering?
Yes, then I finished my electrical engineering at University of Zimbabwe. I went to work briefly for Anglo-American in Shangani Mine.
Before you go there, I want to take you back to growing up without your father.
Yes.
I felt there's something you didn't say there. What was that like? Yeah. You're saying you're raised by somebody who wasn't there. Yeah. What does that mean? Yeah,
look, I think the thing that I inherited from my father, so as you grow up, your grandfather says, look here, this is what your father left. Because when he went to the war, he left a trunk. I still remember it was green, written Arthur Magaya on top. I think my grandfather had gone and fetch it he had gone to Teguana High School. And then so in the trunk, there were books and poetry that he used to read. He used to write at school. So that then forms the basis of my initial reading of just getting
reading
interested.
Your father's poems.
Yes, then I would visualize how he looked like. I'd visualize what he liked. I think
why was this important for you?
I think my grandfather emphasized how great he was and how much he
But you never saw this man.
I never saw him. I actually never saw the picture. But listening to people around, every relative and every person, they'd grown to take him as the leader of the family and the greater family. And I think during that time, going to leaving school, he was at high school, to join the Liberation War was something that many people aspired to, really appreciated. So he was a great person in the bigger family, leading by example, living by example. Bear in mind that my grandfather was a teacher, trained in 1940 We actually come from Chivu. So he bought a farm. So we got this kind of education-driven background that even his name, Arthur, came from a priest called Arthur Shelley Cripps from Chivu. So the stories that my grandfather would tell me about him would make me visualize what it is if he was around. My mother was with us for a while, but then she left and she got remarried. So we live in this space.
How long were you with your mother?
Until I was about 7. That's when she was still pretty young, so she got married again. And then,
so you, with that, growing up without your dad, I get a sense that you envision him. As you're reading the poem,
yes,
Dr. Saul Sadza, the poems and the notes that he left that you are reading.
Yes.
Do you get a sense it left a gap in you, or you managed to create an image that you hung on to and
Yeah, it's a very difficult question to answer, because I see it in 2 ways. The positive side, I think it inspired me quite a lot, because I would almost always ask myself, would you have been happy if I had done this? So just so you know, from almost when I was young until when I finished school, my grandparents never shouted at me. They never beat me up. I don't know that space because of the respect that would have with them. He inspired me to do things that I thought he would have wanted me to do. And obviously, as you grow up, you become aware of how he died. You become a little bit more aware of what he was aspiring to do. And that pushed me to greater heights, to be very honest. But the other side, is that you almost wish if he was alive, maybe you could have done even double or 3 times of what you've done. When you see other children consulting their fathers, getting guidance and getting leverage, you almost have a sense that, okay, everything being equal, maybe I could have gone very far.
Sadly, we'll never know, isn't it?
Yeah.
So let's not dwell there. Let's move to where you are right now. You are CEO and founder of Rubian Group. Your dad will be very proud of you. Your Rubian Group is a strategy consultancy firm. You work in South Africa, you work in Namibia, and you work in Malawi. What services does your company, your consultancy, offer?
Okay, so we offer digital transformation strategy. I think when we got into that space in 2007, the big consulting companies that would do business consultants with the McKinseys, the EOIs, the KPMGs, these big audit firms that would then offer consultants. I've always wanted to offer consultants. And then I figured out that the best way to compete with them is to focus more on the implementation, because naturally they would move in and leave PowerPoint slides and go away. And they didn't like Africa.
Yeah.
So I figured out if I go into Africa and focus on the other side, which they don't like, which is sitting in with the clients and doing implementation, I can then differentiate myself. And indeed, that's what made us grow. So we offer digital transformation consultants, but more importantly, implementation support. So out of the PowerPoint slides, we actually do the implementation of digital transformation. And then the second thing we do is, out of the exercise of doing strategic planning, we then realize that value actually doesn't come from these big enterprise applications or ERPs. It comes from very unique and highly customized solutions for clients. So we identify them. So I've got the other part of my business, which develop solutions for organizations. And then of late, we're now into artificial intelligence. So largely it's digital transformation strategy, digital transformation implementation in one, and then we do solutions that we develop for corporates.
Talk to me about the idea of starting the consultancy firm. You've said, I've always wanted
Yes.
to. What was stopping you?
Yes.
Talk to me about the birth of the idea and the challenges of giving birth to the idea, the funding of the idea. Talk to me about that.
Now you get
let's do this. Let's take a break there. And when we come back, viewers, we're going to go to that space. You're saying you're getting excited, isn't it? You love talking about this. So join us on the other side and we talk about the birth of the idea of giving birth to Rubian Group, a strategy consultants working in South Africa, Namibia, and Malawi, from a man who never met his father. See you on the other side.
It was 6-hour battle, and then unfortunately was shot in the stomach from a helicopter, and then he crawled up some hill and then he died.
Welcome back to our conversation with Dr. Dennis Magaya, a digital transformation strategist. So, Dr. Magaya, when we took the break, you were explaining to me that you have made efforts to identify the remains of your father, DNA testing, which has not been concluded. In the first instance, why did you want to do this?
Yeah, I think by the way, I actually used to cry. I stopped crying when I was Form 4, actually. Whenever you try and imagine how things could be and the like. So we started the journey of trying to figure out where he perished. That was around 2005 or so. It took us around 2000, that's when we started to try and identify. But as you can imagine, people that passed on during that time, and it was the first time that comrades were coming in, there isn't as much information as later on in the years, because then there were no fixed basis for the comrades. Later on, people would know by name that comrade so and so was here. So it took us until about 2015, which is 15 years later, to locate where we believe he perished. Got some support from some very good friends of his, some that would actually confirm they know he was there when the war broke out. It was a live battle supported by Rhodesians from Mutare. They called, what's this airfield in Mutare? Can't remember the name. Grand Reef. Yeah, and it was 6-hour battle, and then unfortunately was shot in the stomach from a helicopter, and then he crawled up some hill and then he died.
So you found what you think are his remains.
Yes.
You took some of them for testing.
Yes. So we found what we believe are his remains. We took them for testing because just needed DNA testing to get confirmation. Unfortunately, that process initially took very long and was not conclusive. The reason was because the remains are very old, like 40 years or so. It's not as easy. We are still trying to conclude that process. We're working with a few institutions and stakeholders to get the process.
I pray that you get to that conclusion. So let's go to that space where you, like I said before we took the break, you say you've always been wanting to start a consultancy.
Yes.
It's never easy to leave a comfortable job. At that time, who were you working for as you were thinking of, let me do it myself?
Yeah. So my last job, I was Chief Strategy Officer for CELC, the third mobile operator in South Africa. Yeah. I got that job at a relatively young age. I was about 31 or so. Then I got this position, this very pressurizing environment in South Africa. And you can imagine at that time, a lot of the people that you work with are sort of middle-aged, and you're probably the youngest. They don't find your jokes funny and all sorts of things.
Yeah. I was also reflecting, Dennis, that it couldn't have been easy working for CELC, because CELC comes on the market when Vodacom
Yes.
and MTN are dominant, and you're trying to pull away clients away from MTN. I remember one of the big things that you Cell C did was that you could take away. You fought
Yes.
with Vodacom and MTN
Yes.
To allow people to take away their numbers if they crossed over, because that's what you want. It couldn't have been easy working for Cell C with these two giants. Talk to me about that.
It was very difficult. I think what gave me some advantage is that before joining Cell C, I was the regional director for Southern Africa for Motorola as a technical director. So we actually built the Vodacom network. In fact, the first data network for Vodacom, 1986, it was then called GPRS. I sold and built that network then. So I was very comfortable in the telecom space and having supported building Vodacom. And at that stage, even the net ones and other telcos in the region were my clients. So moving across to Cell C was a natural migration in an area that I fully understood. But yes, we'd come up with a very
innovative ways of growing your market share.
One of them was we introduced was a weekend, which I think Net1 later introduced here, where if you recharge by R5 during the week, you can call for free or the whole weekend. And suddenly our network was collapsing because of just too many calling. We ended up having meetings over the weekend to throttle traffic as opposed to getting traffic on the network. So we had those innovative strategies, and one of them was we also introduced the idea of national roaming, that because the Cell C, in order to compete throughout the country, you needed coverage, but we didn't have the capital to do that. So
you're piggybacking on Vodacom. Other Vodacom infrastructure.
This is the idea of infrastructure sharing, which then later on was adopted by many telcos, which I think many other organizations like banks could also adopt to share infrastructure.
It's wise.
Yeah, it's very wise. So infrastructure sharing, things like Woza Weekend, we had 3 or 4 very, very innovative strategies that made us compete in that space.
But we are here because on this particular conversation here, because I want to know, when do you start getting itchy feet? And what are you afraid of? Why don't you step out and start your business? Let's go to that space.
So I think when I was at Cell C, I was very lucky. We got a new CEO from the US, Jeffrey Hedbeck. And so we went to a team building, and you had to pick a name from the hat. And whichever name you're paired with, you take a walk for 30 minutes and come back. I was pretty scared. That's, wow, what am I going to talk to the CEO about? But we got to know each other very well. And he says to me, listen, you are working, you look like you're an entrepreneur. But I tell you what, whenever you want to start business, tell me. I'll be your mentor. To the extent that my CEO was my referee for the time that the last bit of my years when I was working. And by the way, before joining Cell C, when I was working for Motorola, I figured out something, that is Africa, until and unless we take our destiny in our own hands, we're not going to go very far. I would work with or talk to a lot of infrastructure suppliers from Europe, from China, from all over the place coming into Africa. And to get a sense that by and large, they take advantage of us. And by and large, a lot of the colleagues would not know how to design technology, how to specify technology, how to implement it, and therefore would buy technology at a premium or would buy obsolete technology. And so the idea that I'm going to want to figure out a way to partner with the best brains in Africa and we form a company, then we can take the destiny of Africa into our own hands. And the best place to start is in the technology space. That's how the whole thing of starting a business started. And so I used to be the chief information officer, then I was moved to strategy. Then I said, here I am, I'm very close to where I want to go. So I think a year before I told CEO that in a year I want to go and form my own business. But it was driven by the idea that we could take control for our destiny. If I have the best brains in technology in Zambia, Malawi, Tanzania, and we team up, then we can make sure that our economies are not taken advantage of by equipment vendors. That was the initial.
Has that idea turned into reality? Are you happy with where you are now with your consultants?
I think to a very large extent. For the first 5-6 years, we're building telecommunications businesses. We would call it from license to cash in the bank. Mm-hmm. And if I go to the customers that I served in the region.
Which are those? Are you able to name them?
Namibia, we build Telecom Namibia, the mobile part from scratch. Swaziland, we build Swaz Telecoms. Tanzania, we build Tanzania Mobile from scratch. In Malawi, Access Telecoms, we built from scratch. And for those ones, really, we're able to make huge savings in terms of the capital that the shareholders actually then invested compared to if we were not there. So to a very large extent, that vision has been achieved.
That's
still being achieved.
How was this vision funded?
So I started my business.
I imagine with Cell C, you don't have seed money to fund this business. How did you actually do it?
I started my business from my study room, actually. After work from Cell C, I would go in my study and start doing some work. So I got some consultants work in Swaziland. And so I would do the work from 5 in the evening until 12 midnight. And then Swaziland is 3 hours away. So I ended up moonlighting to some extent. I would drive to Swaziland, leave Joburg around 4, so that around 8 I'm in Swaziland. I do my meetings, I drive back. So at 2 o'clock, I'm back.
That's tough.
Very tough. I did that for 3 months.
Was it worth it?
Very much worth it. I learned quite a lot during that time to start a business. So I'd gotten this big contract in Swaziland. And then I was not funded, but I'd done 1 or 2 piece jobs, so I had money with me. So I went to 2, 3 good guys. I said, you guys, if you can come with me to Swaziland, you start a company, what would it take? And the other one says 6 months salary, 7 months salary, whatever. I paid. So I shipped them in a car. We went, rented a house, we were in Swaziland, and we started. There I was now running my own business.
You've now left Cell C.
I've now left Cell C. And the next big one was for Malawi. At that stage, the Chief Justice of Swaziland, Mr. Banda, who was husband to Joyce Banda.
Yes, Joyce Banda.
Yeah, he was in Swaziland. So they wanted to build a network in Malawi. So then through references, I was referred, and then I go into Malawi. I've never been to Malawi, so we started building this network. And then the next big one was in Namibia. Namibia was very tough. Because of the dynamics in Namibia. And also got Namibia, started building the network. The big breakthrough also in Namibia was we got a big contract to turn around Namibia Broadcasting Corporation. And for 2 years, Namibia Broadcasting Corporation did not require funding from government. That was my breakthrough into media and television. So I also do consultants for media and television.
What are the biggest takeaways from this season of struggling to set up your idea, your vision rather? What are the lessons from the idea to actually implementing? What are the big lessons that you share with people that are in a similar space as yourself? What did you learn?
I think I'll start on the negative side, then I'll go to the positive side. I think on the negative side is the idea of scaling up. It's very, very difficult. I think initially, in the first 5 years, things were very good because you're getting a lot of money, but then you don't have a lot of demands to expand. But I would literally take money from here and go and set up. So I had offices, Swaziland, Namibia, South Africa, Tanzania, Malawi. It was so hectic that I remember at some stage, my wife twice had to meet me at the airport to swap suitcases with new clothes. Then I go with the other.
That sounds busy.
Yeah. So when you start, it works very well. But there's a point at which you have to transition from being kind of a small one-man driven organization to corporate-ish.
Yeah.
At that point, you need to scale. So you either need to get big contracts or you need big funding, which I didn't quite have. And it takes a strain on you. Actually, the income that you get, you use it to pay salaries and all sorts of things to an extent that your employees may end up having more money than you because you just want this thing to grow. So scaling up is very, very difficult at that stage. And in consultants, people have to believe you. You have to tell a story. Remember, you're selling something abstract. And then you say, hey, Trevor, I'm going to do this. Would you like it? You say, yes. Then I say, it's going to cost you
X amount,
millions. And then you must be willing to pay for it without seeing it. The difficulty is you can't then easily delegate, because you send someone else, they say, no, that's not the picture we saw. So that takes a huge strain on you. And then secondly, you are in the space which is generally done by this big white European dominated. So you've got to work 10 times harder for your story to be believed. So that took a strain. But on the positive side, I think if you are determined and you keep pushing in your belief, it will work out. And most importantly, what drives me is I love what I do. I could do it for free. It's just that I've got family to support. So when you love what you do, it's not work.
No.
It's fun. Yeah. That's what I've learned in my consulting business. I love it.
It's fun, it's work. Digital transformation is what everybody is talking about. But there's difference between lip service and actually doing things, and you're doing that. I want us to go there right now in terms of what do you find to be the hurdles on the road towards digital transformation. So at home, don't go away. When we come back, we will go to the hurdles encountered by corporates and indeed individuals towards digital transformation. Some of us are too old to be transforming to AI, but still we must transform. So see you on the other side.
And so enter digital transformation, which is the biggest hurdle that we face is people assume it's a technology, when in fact it's not. It's a culture. It's a way of doing business.
Greetings. My name is Trevor Ncube, host of In Conversation with Trevor, Zimbabwe's most engaging conversational show. I go beyond the headlines and beyond the sensational. We've brought before your screens change makers from arts, business, and politics, and from the region. Please join our growing community of viewers. Subscribe, like, and share. Welcome back to our conversation with Dr. Dennis Magaya, a digital transformation strategist. Dennis, before we took the break, you broke down the challenges and the lessons that you got from getting into your business. But you spoke about the challenge of scaling. You have scaled.
Yes.
Can you share one or two lessons about overcoming? How did you overcome the challenge of scaling?
Right. Yeah, sometimes when you talk about it, it's almost like you had a foresight and
you were a sharp guy.
Yeah, sometimes it doesn't work like that. Sometimes you just discover it as you go. I think there are two aspects now thinking about it. One of them was to scale horizontally. In other words, you find other services that are very in a similar space to what you started doing. So I started doing business consultants. But then I figured out that if I put software next to it, it's a little bit more sustainable. It has got more annuity. So I started software development. So that sort of gave me some diversity. But the two are very interrelated. That the same customers that you speak with on consultants, you can almost recommend software solutions. And then a few other things that I did. So you could try and scale by doing a horizontal kind of thing, but it shouldn't stretch you too much. And if you can imagine both, and which is the other thing I figured out, the consultants in software are not capital intensive. So if you don't have capital, you've got to figure out things that are not capital intensive. So for consultants, you're selling brains. And by the way, my mother for years used to say, "What do you do?" I couldn't explain. And I used to imagine when you go to the airport, there were these papers that you fill in and they say, "What is your profession?" I said, if there was an interview, many people could not pass. Then after a while, my mother says, "I know what you do. Insurance, you sell brains." So you don't need a lot of capital. You just need maybe good salaries for the people that you employ. And so is in software. You don't need that. So that is the second thing I figured out in order to scale. And then the third one is partnerships as much as you can. But unfortunately, in consultants and software, when you have partners, as soon as they think they can do it better than
They
you,
run away.
They run away. How did I solve that? And that happens also in software. In my business, if someone resigns, I don't ask them to leave all the information on their laptop no, because I believe that in 3 months we'll have new things. So continuous pursuit of knowledge and information and renewal helped me to scale. Because then you always have good ideas and different things, and you look for partners to team up with you.
Those who go, cheers.
Those who go, cheers.
You find somebody else.
Yeah, so partnerships are very, very important, especially in an environment where you can't scale, and in an environment where the economy is shrink. We are not as huge as the US or China, so you got to do partners.
What's the biggest part of your consultants at the moment?
The biggest part is digital.
Of your business, yeah.
Digital transformation is the biggest.
Shall we go there now?
Yes.
What are you encountering in this space in terms of what are the hurdles that companies face? Okay. Or maybe rephrase the question, what problems are companies trying to solve when they say, come and help us with digital transformation?
I think the biggest problem really is culture. I think just go a step back in terms of organizational transformation. Generally, when companies are struggling, they want to renew, they go through some transformation of some sort. If you go back with the Six Sigmas and with all these, and up to 1990, that's when we had restructuring and business process reengineering. At that stage, information flow in an organization and how an organization functions was pretty much in groups. So you guys know how to do marketing. You sit together, you've got an intro for marketing. You guys and technical, you sit together. And restructuring then assumed that for us to reduce cost largely, we've got to either optimize our processes or lay off people. The idea of a business model was never there. We didn't talk about it. We did not even talk about an operating model because that involves many other things. So change your processes, lay off people, then you have restructured. Then come the internet, 1995, 96. We suddenly have this massive explosion of information and interconnected of the world, and then you add mobile networks on top. Good days. Therefore, it was no longer necessary to keep these departmental silos. And therefore, we could remove paper. Therefore, we could move information so much quicker. We could collaborate. So the whole concept of how an organization functions changed completely. And so entered digital transformation, which is the biggest hurdle that we face is people assume it's a technology, when in fact it's not. It's a culture. It's a way of doing business. It's agility. It's a way of thinking. Of course, underneath, you need some core technology to drive it. But the moment you see it as a technology, you've missed the point. You end up actually getting worse.
So digital transformation is not about technology.
Correct.
It's about culture.
Yes. It's about a way of doing business. It's about agility. It's about interconnectedness. So in the process, therefore, you can identify technologies that can give you that. If you don't do it like that, you end up spending massive amounts of money buying big systems. People go and buy a new core banking system, a new switch, and a new ERP. They say we have digitally transformed. No, you haven't. Actually, you've sunk money. Because everything that we're doing, remember, just at the top, you've got what we then call a business model is how do you create and deliver value. Someone will say, I go to Turkey and order clothes and wholesale. That's what I do, you know? And you need to think about that from a digital perspective. And when you do that, you realize it's not a technology, it's a thought process. And then when you go to an operating model level, you're saying, how do you then get these services to customers? Someone say, no, I've got a bunch of young guys that have got wheelbarrows, they go and deliver these things and fetch money in the evening. So that's how you're operating. And you need to think that digitally first. And then you can then say, what technology do I require? So naturally, therefore, digital transformation does not necessarily have to sit with the chief technology officer. It can sit with anybody.
Do corporates get that? Particularly Zimbabwe. Don't they say that digital transformation is about talent? is about the machines, it's about technology, not so much the culture.
Yeah. So what we have is, apart from the culture, I'll come to that in a moment. What I've learned is that Africa has got some unique macro problems that then perhaps stop people from going into that direction. And so one of them is just infrastructure deficit. That from years, we just have a huge deficit in core infrastructure. One of which is, say, telecommunications. Until when you have cheap and affordable data, then the whole idea of digital, people just want to pack it. We have a food deficit. And you go to policymakers, the first thing God I think around is food. And therefore, this thing then takes a back seat because people are focused. And the third one, which is more devastating, is population deficit. We simply don't have the numbers. Digital is about volume. And 16 million people, some of these countries that came out of the colonization don't have a viable business case to stand on their own in the digital environment, because digital is about numbers, as you know from the internet. So we don't have the numbers. And for us to have the numbers, we need to expand globally. But we are not designed to develop products that can sell globally. We sell domestically. And then you have these numbers. So when you go digital, the first thing is you're going a small price, but volume. So when you go small price, you lose revenue. And the benefit you get from digital, there is no numbers for you to offset the loss that you make by the drop in price. So we don't have the numbers. And because of that, people always revert to what they used to do many years ago. That, okay, let's just keep our product as it was. Let's keep our business as it was. Because if you go into this space...
But there's a danger to doing that.
A very big danger. Right. You will be disrupted, and your business can die before you even go anywhere. If you recall 2019, when EcoCash was doing cash in, cash out, certainly we learned you don't need a big branch to run a bank. We're all running branches for EcoCash. In fact,
brick and mortar is not necessary in this age.
Correct. The branch became the handset. So we would buy the branch for the mobile operator, would be the bank teller for the mobile operator, would be the branch manager for them. And to make matters worse, they would charge us for doing their work. So yeah.
What's the biggest challenge when it comes to that? So you're saying it's culture. What's the other biggest challenge in digital transformation for companies all across?
Yeah. So the element of culture is one. But then there's the element that if you start even from boards to ExCo, there is a big misunderstanding or underappreciation of what digital is all about. I think we tend just to sit back and watch. So
generational issue?
Generational issue to a very large extent. To another extent also inbreeding, that we have got this belief that only people that came from within that industry can lead the organizations. So we therefore don't have at boards and ExCo sometimes enough people that appreciate what digital transformation is and what are the benefits of digital transformation. Just from cost reduction. I'll give you a very small example just to make it practical. If digital transformation does not deliver cost reduction, then don't do it, because the revenue side is a wish, but the cost is reality. And what is it that is practical that people see and people know? They talk paperless. So I see a lot of paper, then I know you are very far away from it. You find an organization buying bond paper, let's say, for $5. And when they are under pressure to reduce cost, they say Trevor must be retrenched. But they leave the $5 bond paper there because they don't understand that environment. So they retrench Trevor and they wait again. Nothing changes. They retrench John and they wait again. To the extent that I believe retrenchment without underlying digital transformation is a waste of money and time. You will not go very far. You go in a loop. So you would need to first do massive organizational transformation driven by digital transformation. And then if you have to lay off people, it must be an outcome of that process.
Right.
Because then what you end up with is a future-proof business model and an operating model that delivers value. You may actually end up employing more people, because then you have been able to unlock value from the people that you have, from the assets that you have. You can reach more markets, you have dropped your cost, you have brought in efficiencies, and then you can say, what do I do? Because people is the greatest assets by the way.
And the revenues are coming in.
The revenues are coming in.
We're going to take a break there. When we come back, we're going to go to a place that everybody's talking about, AI. Some of us talk about it with a bit of understanding, some of us from ignorance. We are scared about AI. Before we go there, as we prepare, I must read this from The Singularity is Nearer, from Ray Kurzweil. I like Ray Kurzweil's writing. This is his second book. There's the first one, which was not in this line, was The Singularity is Near.
Yes.
Now it's nearer. So to prepare us for the next segment, he says the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development did a review of which tasks in a given job are going to be automated.
Yes.
And they produce those results. And the results are as follows. The conclusion was that 14% of jobs across 32 countries had more than a 70% chance of being eliminated through automation over the succeeding decade. And another 32% had a probability of over 50%. McKinsey in 2021 did a report which says that, which found that 63% of all working time in today's developed economies is spent on tasks that could already be automated with today's technology. And the question that I would want to ask you as we go there is, which jobs are going to be disrupted? Where are we likely to get new jobs? Should we be frightened of AI, or should we embrace it? Should we be running away or running towards it? At home, don't go away. We'll get into the conversation around AI with a man who understands technology and AI. So see you on the other side.
The biggest problem we have is that for the first time in history, we have got a technology that we're actually not prepared for.
Welcome back to our conversation with Dr. Dennis Magaya, a digital transformation strategist. So, Dr. Magaya, AI is this big thing that people are scared of. People talk about it. We don't quite understand it. What's your sense? Frighten us or give us the comfort as far as AI is concerned.
Or maybe frightened. I think. Yeah. I want to give a perspective a little bit on how I ended up into AI, and so then I'll answer the question. From 2007, we were really doing organizational transformation and turnaround. And I've always had this idea that you must be able to tell people at least 80%, 60% of what they know, they don't know wherever you are, so that you add value. So around 2014, there about 2010, digital came. So we dropped the organizational transformation turnaround into digital transformation. And so around 2020, about 2021, 2022, there was talk around artificial intelligence. Then we realized, okay, so this digital thing is falling off. So we latched onto AI. That was effectively 2023. That's when I got huge interest into artificial intelligence. And what have we done since then is we have formed the Artificial Intelligence Institute Africa. It's a non-profit organization which is here to advance AI usage in Africa. We've got a board, is Pan-African, so a lot of our board members are from the region. And again, the idea of Africa driving is one narrative. Our objective is to advise government, to advise private organizations into how they can use AI. We also provide training. And now coming to your question, I think the biggest problem we have is that for the first time in history, we have got a technology that we're actually not prepared for. And I think the biggest thing...
All of us. Humanity.
Yes, even the people that trained it, that developed it. Humanity is not. So,
That's frightening.
For the first time in history, in the past we'd have internet, we'd have mobile, we have these things. But for the first time in history, we've got about a dozen technologies accelerating at the same time. And for AI, every 2.5 months, it doubles in capability. And as humanity, we think linearly. We're not trying to think in an exponential way. And so when you have something that doubles in capability every 2.5 months, literally, you struggle to cope with it. And we're not ready for it. We underestimate it. Even the people that developed it underestimated its capability.
Then you say that we are facing a number of technologies developing at the same time. Artificial intelligence, synthetic biology, robotics, quantum computing, synthetic media, misinformation, DNA hacking. Essentially, all of it happening around the fact that even manufacturing processing is happening around the fact that everything's being turned into information technology.
Correct. Yeah.
Frightening, isn't it?
Yes.
This guy, Mustafa Salman, says we are at the cusp of the most important transformation of our time.
Yes.
Do you agree?
Yes, 100%. I think we are at the luckiest generation to have experienced artificial intelligence. I'll tell you why. So, by definition, AI is a technology that mimics how a human being brain functions. So, in the past, we had this view that intelligence is always associated with biology. So, for the first time, they took it out and they've created this computer which you don't have to think, or you don't have to solve a problem. You give it data, and using the data, it will mimic how a human being brain functions, solve the problem for you, come up with solutions, and learns from the data that you give it. But what is the most fundamental thing about it is that for the first time in history, we've got a technology that can create new stuff. When the printing press came, it could only print newspapers, but it couldn't create new content on its own. You've got a car, it can only move. It can't create better cars, it can't do anything. But AI is a technology which is capable of creating new knowledge and new information which did not exist before. It's capable
of improving itself.
Yes.
Without human beings prompting.
Correct.
Frightening.
Correct. So because what you essentially do is develop some software program of some sort, and that software program, as you push data into it, is able to learn from the data, improve itself, generate new knowledge, generate new information, and give you without you intervening. It's like a child. Literally, you train a child. What they do is they become
better than you.
And you may not predict how far they go.
I'm sorry to rush you, but again, Mustafa says this. He says there's a core dilemma.
Yes.
And the core dilemma is this, that sooner or later, a powerful generation of technology leads humanity toward either catastrophic or dystopian outcomes. I believe this is a great meta problem of the 21st century. We are going to create machines that are brighter than us, machines that might come for us, machines, I say to our good friend, Professor Mtambara, that these machines might be better than human beings. Should we not be controlling this? And I remember him saying, who gave you the impression that you are the ones who are supposed to be the better, whatever species? What's your view on that?
So we will get Possibly. We are now at narrow artificial intelligence, which is AI just for specific tasks. And they reckon in the next, within 10 years, some 2030, 2026, we'll get to artificial general intelligence. That's AI, which is similar to human beings. And thereafter, we'll get into super artificial intelligence, which is now much better than human beings. And yeah, people then reckon we'll get into a space where we'll have digital species and human species. And perhaps that will be the end of human-dominated history, because we'll then have digital-dominated history.
That's what he says, 2030.
Yeah, bearing in mind that at the moment, the interface between people and everything is culture, is what drives everything. So we're going to get to a space where culture will be driven by AI. Your knowledge of anything is driven by AI. You can speak with an AI, chat with an AI, and AI begins to control everything that we do. So the moment of singularity that he talks about is when things change so much that you can't predict what will happen the next day. There are some fundamentals that I just want to share with you here. Is that when the moment of singularity comes, what essentially means is that intelligence or knowledge become abundant and a commodity. Just as you switch the plug on the wall, you've got electricity. If you want a little bit more intelligence, you take your phone, you literally plug on the wall. I want an extra 100 IQ, 200 IQ. You plug on the wall, you take your phone, you've got a doctor on your. It's like you have Albert Einstein in the basement. And
but also, Doc, the fact that your brain is going to be connected to your computer.
Yeah. So,
with time. I mean, this is the frightening bit. Perhaps we're not.
So at that point, so the first one is when intelligence and information becomes abundant and almost for free. And that's frightening because the way we are educated now is to sometimes cram or acquire knowledge and information, we use it, but it's now available.
It's not necessary to cram everything.
Just get it. But now coming to the point you're making is that if you go back in history, the biggest bottleneck we have now, even with the iPhone or the smartphones, is that we've got a limitation on the thumb. We can only do literally 200 inputs per second, so that's a limitation. And the next natural progression is the leap, because now you can talk to a phone, but still the leap is much slower than the brain. So the next thing that will die is your smartphone. And what will replace it is distributed computing, where now you connect your brain directly to the computer. And at that stage, we have gotten rid of these bottlenecks or bandwidth inputs.
And it's already happening, because Elon Musk has put a chip
in the brain,
in somebody's brain. That's already happening.
Yeah. He's got a company or a project which is working on neural. Yeah. But one of the areas that I like, which I think will be disrupted, is education. Just take a few things. We learn about geography, history, maths, and these things, subjects. But those things were designed on the basis of the limitation of how we think. Who said there must be geography, history, and the like? Why can't it be multidisciplinary? Maybe we'll discover new subjects that we didn't know. The whole idea of a syllabus, a curriculum which is updated once every 2 years, 3 years, or 4 years, will disappear. Because
so the question that I asked, which jobs are safe? Is that even a legitimate question? Do we know? Which jobs are safe? Yeah. What advice would you give to young people wanting to go to university and study? What should they be going for?
Yeah, so a lot of the routine mechanical jobs will definitely be replaced, because there are two sides to it. There is the robotics replacement, which some people talk about for factories where you need physical people. But there is the logical replacement, where somebody was doing anything to do with calculations, to do with reconciliations, bank tellers, clerks, and all sorts of people. That definitely will be replaced by
insurance salespeople. Our parents are going to go.
People, teachers. So I think the biggest benefit we'll get initially is the collaboration of human beings with AI. I think we'll get a much better benefit. We'll also have new jobs.
Which are those new jobs? Where do you think we'll see more new jobs coming?
Yeah. So I think just to go back in history, 80% of the jobs that we have now did not exist 60 years ago.
Yeah.
So we're going to have new jobs in people that will be creating these AI solutions. We'll have new jobs in people that will be understanding how to implement AI in corporates. We'll have new jobs that will support government institutions to implement AI. One of my favorite ones on this one is if you want to make a massive difference in any country, imagine a Starlink costs $250, just as an estimate. You put a solar system for another $200. Let's say it's a package of $500. You go to a bank, you get it funded, $500 per school. So 10,000 schools, that's what, 50 or 5 million?
Mm-hmm.
We could put AI in every school in the country for $500 with the Starlink and the solar system, and make education available free of
I agree with you.
to every child in the country.
Yeah.
Here I'm talking the practical benefit. Imagine we do that the same for agriculture. We take every agriculture material that has ever been produced, we load it onto an AI, and you make it available for free to every farmer. Imagine the difference that would make.
That's the kind of thinking we need, isn't it? Shall we go to books? Our viewers love books, and I've already said Ray Kurzweil, The Singularity is Nearer. It's a great book, but perhaps the book that excited me most is The Coming Wave by Mustafa Suleiman, which I think, the kind of things that you're talking about, being futuristic and future-proofing ourselves in education and agriculture. If our politicians read this book, then this would be a different country. But the thing that I worry about is that we are losing our soul when we become more and more like machines. We're losing our soul when we assign everything to machines. But I hear that those machines might have their own soul. But which is why this book for me is important, what we owe each other as humanity. But for me, it says, Doctor, should we not be setting regulation for AI? Should we not be saying, we had the non-proliferation treaty, which realized how dangerous nuclear weapons were. And humanity got around and agreed that the production of nuclear weapons will be controlled. Why doesn't humanity sit around the table and say, we owe ourselves a safe world? Nobody should produce a highly powered AI without a license. What's your response to that before I go to your books?
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting one, conversation. Just to give you perspectives, I may not give you an exact answer, but I want to give you perspectives. The first one is very difficult to regulate something which is much faster than you. ChatGPT now has got IQ maybe 155. Albert Einstein was 116. An average person about 80. So we're talking something which is almost double.
We don't know, yeah.
The next ChatGPT, if they get a 10 times multiplier, we're talking now 1,500 IQ. And meanwhile, ours is not progressing, it's still sitting at 80. So we get a big problem in trying to regulate something which can autonomously think and develop and do things.
The Chinese have just released DeepSeek. They've released Manus, which is even much more powerful.
Exactly.
I get what you're saying.
Then the second problem we have, all these developments in AI have got nothing to do with my grandfather in ways and market. It's capitalism. It's people wanting to control the world. And they will go as far as they can. Remember 2023, they actually wanted to sign an agreement that let's stop this thing. But unfortunately, it's capitalism, and to regulate capitalism is not in
the soul, Doctor. I go back to that. But I'll press you now. What books are you recommending? I love the fact that you are reading your father's poems and notes. Do you intend to publish them as books?
Yeah. So, going back to the AI thing, is Mo Goddard, one of the godfathers of AI, reckons in the past, he would sit and write books. Nowadays, it's no longer necessary. You take a list of all your publications and all sorts of things. You give it to an AI and say, write a book for me, for the youth, for the elderly and the like. So yes, the answer is yes. The technologies that can help me to take all the things that he left, combine it with what I have, dump all the pictures and stuff and say, AI, write me a book about his life. And I can have that. I do a lot of writing, by the way, nowadays more in the AI space. So I think shortly I'll be releasing books because the technology allows.
Any idea what the titles of these books are going to be?
Yeah, so I like by the way, I'm studying also with a university on the impact of AI on jobs, because I think the biggest impact on humanity will be around jobs, let alone culture and all sorts of things. So one of the first ones that I want to publish is the impact of AI on jobs, particularly in Africa, because we don't have the data. Not so the same, we just go in the dark.
Yeah.
How does it affect employment, jobs, culture, and all sorts of things? I would like to write in that space.
What other book are you reading?
Okay, so the one I to reread.
Yeah,
3 times now is Who Moved My Cheese? Who Moved My Cheese? Fundamental.
A very simple book.
Yes.
So small and yet impactful.
Read it many times. From it today, it's about change. That if you don't change, or simply put, it then says, imagine what you would have achieved if you didn't have fear. And fear is really what stops us
from changing.
And from changing and achieving the best. And by the way, fear also is things that don't exist. You imagine them in our brain, and we think they're there. That I've thoroughly enjoyed.
Which other book?
I like the Dale Carnegie series. By the way, my sales days, I was trained by Dale Carnegie in South Africa. One of the first ones that I read then was The Greatest Salesman in the World. And nowadays, the one I'm reading is How to Influence.
It's a lovely book, isn't it?
Yes. But I love it because half the things they talk about, I'm struggling to do them.
Human beings are difficult. They're not like machines.
Yeah. And now 60% of my time is no longer in just books, but it's just reading artificial intelligence content, because the space is moving so
very quickly.
Today there's something new. I'm hoping that by December I would have written 1 or 2 of my books in artificial intelligence, particularly as it affects Africa.
Dr. Magaya, what a pleasure chatting to you. I mean, I know people are going to be saying we need part 2. And I think indeed we do. We should have focused even more on AI. There's so much to talk about, the threats, the opportunities. But I'm totally in total awe about what AI is going to do. Concerned, but excited in a way. And to have somebody like you who knows the stuff and is working on the continent. To help the continent understand and use AI and embrace AI is a great thing. So I'm sure we will get another opportunity to talk. Thank you so much, Doctor. Allow me to turn to our viewers who are all over the world to say thank you so much for your support. We're now close to 11 million views. We're excited about that. Keep them coming. 84,000 subscribers. Excited about that. Go to TikTok, go to Instagram. We are all there. And we love your comments, by the way, below this video in terms of what Dr. Magaya and I have been talking about. Keep them coming. Keep them coming. And remember, we're a weekly show. We're out every Monday, 7 a.m. Central African time. And to ensure you never miss out on any of these shows, remember to subscribe, to like, and share. Until next time, cheers to you all.